Fitzy and Wippa.
We have an amazing aroma in the studio. I love having this man here. We haven't seen him for ages. He's got a new single out, Poison Blood. This is it right here. What a voice. It is the magnificent Darren Hayes.
It's an iconic voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that voice.
How, as you've got older, your voice, conserving your voice, how do you go? Do you have to look after it more, Darren?
Oh my God, so much.
Yeah.
I asked this question to Annie Lennox once, like years ago, because I was so insecure about preserving it. And even she said the same way I did. She was like, oh my God, yes, of course. Of course. Every singer does. It's a life of being a monk.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of the time I don't speak when I'm working. Yep. In fact, do you mind if I don't speak?
Just nod. Wink one.
Lots of water.
Write down your answers and Fitzy will just read them out.
Yeah, lots of water. I steam, I steamed my voice before I came here. Like I have to inhale steam. No, for real.
Did you really?
For real. I have to inhale.
Humidifiers at home.
Humidifiers.
Wow.
I have no caffeine. It's a misery.
You just brought up Annie Lennox.
Yes.
And this is Darren Hayes, your life. I mean, peak 90s, right? Savage Garden #1. Can you please, I love hearing these stories where you're at a party and you met someone and you just went, oh my God, how my life has changed so much. When you talk about Annie Lennox, who's such a legend in the industry, did you have one of those moments that really stands out for you?
So many. I think the most incredible moment I ever had was meeting Madonna, because I've always been such a huge fan and I had all these opportunities to meet her and I was always like, no. Even so far as, I guess I can say this now because I've been married for 17 years, I went on a few dates with her brother.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
And
what was his name?
Christopher Ciccone.
We never really saw much of Christopher.
No.
Not until he wrote a book about her.
That's right.
And then she cut him out of her life forever.
How did you meet him?
I met him, I was set up on a date with him through one of Madonna's friends. And also I knew Alec Kashishian, who did that film In Bed with Madonna.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was the director. And I was obsessed with Alec, and I guess I kind of dated Alec for a second as well.
Okay, some busy times.
Yeah, but the thing was, I wasn't like a Madonna stalker, and they could have introduced me to her the whole time, and it was really important for me to let them know, like, no, I'm into you, I'm not into her, even though I was totally gagging to meet her.
Yeah.
And then years later, when I met my husband, and I had sort of both of those gentlemen, well, not Christopher. Christopher and I just didn't gel. But Alec and I had a really special connection. But it just wasn't love for me. And it was a bit awkward, so we didn't speak for a few years. And then one day I ended up invited to a party by a mutual friend of Madonna's and mine. And I had no idea that she was going to be there. And I was in a fat period.
Oh, we all have those.
And you don't want to meet an ex when you're fat. And Alec was there. Alec Kashishian was there. And I turned up and Alec answered the door and it was just like, and then I was there with my husband. I was like, Alec, this is my husband. And then I didn't know, and it turned out to be an impromptu birthday for Madonna. And then there was only like 16 people there. Gwyneth Paltrow was there, all these other people. I'm terrible with celebrities, right?
Yes.
And I walk into the room and I scan the room and I'm like, there's this huge golden light from God on Madonna. She's there dressed as Madonna. Yeah. I'm dying. We sit down. Richard grabs my leg like, what the heck?
Cool.
Like, what is going
Don't
on?
stuff this up.
And someone says, Darren, you know Madonna? And I go, yeah, uh-huh. And she was so amazing. She was like, I know you. You're a singer. And I was like, yeah. And I took the ball and ran with her. And I went, yeah. And she's like, I went to your concert. And I went,
no way.
How cool.
Brilliant.
And I said, yeah, you did. It was in 1998. And she said, tell the story. And I said, if you want me to tell the story, I'll tell the story. Here's what happened. The head of Sony Music heard that I did Ray of Light in my sound check. And he called me up and he said, yo, Darren, I hear you do Ray of Light at your show. And I was like, no, I don't. I do it at sound check. And he said, well, Madonna's coming to the show, so you do it. And I said, yes, I do it. I do it.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, you came to the show and I performed the song and I never knew if you liked it or not. And she goes, I loved it.
Oh, how cool.
And I was just like dying. And then she went around the room. She's like, you tell a joke. And I didn't care.
Entertain me.
Entertain me. And I did it.
Did she know that you had relations with her brother?
So here's what Well, I don't know, but I do know that Alec and her sat together in this interview, and then Alec was like whispering in her ear, and she was like looking at me going,
Is that right?
And then they took a break from the dinner table to go to the bathroom, like girlfriends do, to talk about stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they left the dinner table.
Talking about you.
Me. And then I just sat there really uncomfortably and fat.
No.
And your husband was there as
Yes.
well.
And not the gorgeous creature who's talking to you today, who obviously, as you introed, smells divine.
What a weird day.
Horrible.
He
So
would have
we
got
ended up-
home
we
and
left.
lay in bed and gone,
Why would you leave? Madonna loves you. She has told a room
I
of
don't
people
know that she
loves
loves me now
you.
because she obviously would have found out all of that stuff. And
Aw.
I love Alec, but I haven't spoken to him for years. But
Was
you know,
it In Bed with Darren? Was that ever, did they ever think about doing that one?
great doco.
well, that's a book. I could write that book.
Can we go back to the start, right?
Yeah.
Because I've always been fascinated by this story. And I think I probably heard it on like 60 Minutes ages ago, but it stuck with me. And I hope I've got this correct. But it was about you working in a video library.
Yeah.
And your dad saying, "What are you doing?" And you saying, "Well, I'm just earning a little bit of money, but I'm going to be a music artist and I'm going to be an international seller."
Yeah.
And I have always been so impressed, and I always am, by someone who can call the shot and then make the shot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you knew exactly what you could do and where you wanted to be.
At 13.
That's extraordinary.
I mean, I think the most important question is, what was the most popular VHS tape at that time?
Indiana Jones.
They were all the softcore porn ones
Okay.
that I would watch while I was closing the store. Yeah, no, it was really funny back then. I mean, Titanic was huge back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
But also just anything. It was so funny watching people try to rent softcore porn.
Oh no, basic.
Yeah.
We were saying Basic Instinct.
And your parents would put like a
Porky's was another big movie.
hold on the
and-
18 plus.
But they would always have I don't know if we had a hold on those. Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, for the teens and stuff. But it would always be like someone would always have to have like 3 or 4 other items. It'd be like, like
Underneath
I
a
don't-
kids' movie.
exactly.
Yeah.
They'd be
And
like
that one.
this one. But we did secretly judge.
So how did you know so early on? Did you compare what you thought you could do to everybody else, or you just knew you had it within you?
Okay, so let's segue into something kind of dark, and Poison Blood's a little bit like this
Sure.
because it's about depression and stuff. The truth is, and it's fine, I'm a super happy person right now, right? Grew up in a very violent home.
Right.
So are you familiar with the psychological behavior of dissociation?
Not so
I'll
much.
tell you a little bit about it. So basically, it's the way the human mind can look at something traumatic and basically step outside itself
Right.
and deny what's going on
To avoid it.
to avoid it. So when I was a child, what was happening to me was my father was violent. He was alcoholic. He beat my mum up, and then I was being bullied at school. But what was also happening was Michael Jackson was happening.
Yeah.
Huge superstar. And I went to see the Bad tour in 1987. And I remember going to that show, and it was hilarious because I was the kid in the front row screaming, "I love you, Michael! I love you, Michael!"
Yeah.
So how old were you then?
13.
13.
Meanwhile, girls actually were kicking me in the back, calling me the F word. But I really just decided that I watched him in concert and I watched the effect that he had on the audience. And I just thought, I became a student and I just thought, I want to do this one day. And there is something about that thing of being, like in a small town and thinking, when you feel so rejected, and not by Brisbane, I love Brisbane and I love Queensland and whatever, but my school and my home life was so traumatic
Yes.
that I really just decided I would be a pop star.
But
For the escapism.
The escapism.
Were you singing then? Were you singing at school?
Yeah,
Were you
so
doing-
I was
Right.
I was plucked really reluctantly into the girls' choir, but it
Yes.
was because this sounds arrogant, but it was because I was a great singer. I didn't know that I was, but my teachers
Sure.
did.
Okay.
So they really guided me, and they saw that I was this kid that was really vulnerable, and so they put me in the musicals, and they put me in places where I would be noticed. And I didn't have that confidence in myself, but I had this other universe in my head where I was Michael Jackson in the Bad video. He got picked on and he was like, "I'm going to dance you to death."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I thought when I was being spat at, called the F word, kicked, beaten
Wow.
up, bullied. It was horrendous.
So did you know you were gay when you married for the first time to a
No,
woman?
and this is so baffling to people. But when you grow up in a society where one of the first times you ever express that you think a boy is cute, and the people that love you and all of your society says that's wrong. I have a song on my record that's coming out where I remember a school teacher beat me because I was playing with girls' hair.
Physically.
Physically beat me. Yeah, she said to me, I was called a fairy by my school principal. She called me into her office and she said, "You're a little fairy, aren't you, Darren Hayes?" And I was
my
I
God.
was 8 years old.
Wow.
Crazy.
You know, so
But you hadn't clicked then.
No.
You wouldn't have even known what she was
No.
talking about, like your age.
But I did on a subconscious level, you know. And there's an amazing book called The Velvet Rage, and it really applies to sort of gay men of my age. So I just turned 50, and it doesn't apply now to this new generation of Troye Sivan and Little Nas X, the kids who just arrive as they are.
Yeah.
But there was so much shame in my generation about it that we were just any inclination that I had to be my true self was slapped down. So I had two secrets. Don't tell anyone what's happening at home because that's so shameful. You could never admit the domestic abuse that was happening. And then this burgeoning feeling that I had of just little innocent crushes on boys that was so slapped down that it became almost like a dissociative identity disorder where my sexuality was just so far in the background, I could never act upon it. So it just didn't develop.
Right. So when you then, were you able to fall in love with a woman?
Yeah,
Were you in love?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it broke my heart. If you listen to the lyrics on the Affirmation record, like I Don't Know You Anymore, that song is, I had such an amazing partner in my wife in that she was the person that really said to me, you have to leave. Because I came out without ever even holding a boy's hand.
What an amazing thing for her to do.
Incredible.
Are you still close with her?
Very.
That's fantastic.
That is an amazing story.
Yeah, like I remember being backstage in Tasmania and we listened to this song called The Power of Goodbye by Madonna and we just both started crying and she looked at me and she just said, you have to go.
Wow.
And
So she knew you better than you knew yourself in a way.
well, I had come out to both of our families. You know, it was the height of our fame, and I just knew, and that feeling was like, God, I was going back to this song. It's a trigger warning about depression and suicide here, if anyone's listening. But you know, I had become suicidal because I thought I could never. I'm a monogamous person, so I would never cheat on someone. But I thought, my God, how do I know this about myself now? I was meeting gay people and I was meeting fashion stylists and whatever, and suddenly realizing, oh, that's my tribe.
That's where I feel at home.
But I've committed to this person that I love so much. And we were trying to have a kid.
Yeah.
You know, it was, and then the fame was all happening, and the media was all telling me that I was gay. But I'll tell you, the first 2-3 years of us separating, and even me being divorced, I begged for years to come home.
Right.
Yep.
And she was so strong in that she was like, I know it's hard,
Well,
but
it's not,
Thank God.
You're not,
Good on her.
You're not the first
Amazing.
artist.
Amazing woman.
We talk about Peter Allen, Elton John, who has done the same. Have you ever met Elton? Have you ever spoken
yeah, I
about
went to his
that?
wedding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I went to his wedding, and he was so beautiful.
man.
He is the person you think he is. He really cares about every artist.
Have you ever had a conversation, because you went through the exact same thing that he did
with him and
marrying
Renata?
her?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I didn't have that conversation. No.
It'd be fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh,
But it
Darren.
happens. You know, I just wasn't that person that was in the closet and lied. I was lying to myself.
Yes, of course.
And a lot of my new record talks about that.
Right.
Like, it's very much about like, I came back because I thought it would be so sad for me to have left this industry without really just embracing who I am. Because even though I did marry Richard and, you know, I was on magazines like, I'm out, I'm gay, I still hated myself for a long time for that. Felt a lot of guilt and shame about it.
Well, good on you for how far you've come.
Thanks, man.
It's an amazing.
Awesome.
Your career is unbelievable because it starts in '93. You only brought out 2 albums, Savage Garden.
Is that
which
right?
Is, which just blows my mind.
Yeah, and they both sold exactly the same amount, which is crazy.
Did they?
Well, you ended up selling. Was it 25 million?
It's now around 30 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that you could walk up to any person on the street and they could sing back to you at least one of your songs. Like any Australian. That is massive.
Yeah, they wouldn't know what I look like, which is hilarious. So I love that.
They
It's actually
would.
really nice because I'm really uncomfortable with celebrity, but I'm proud of the musical legacy for sure. Yeah.
So we get Darren Hayes in the studio, and our next step is getting him to rap.
This is where we
Yeah, no, it's great. It's fantastic.
You can leave now if you want, Darren.
It's great.
You're rapping against me today, and I feel like you've been practicing with Tommy outside the studio. I feel like Tommy's looking at me going, "You're about to get
You're no
annihilated.
chance, yeah.
You're about to get annihilated."
Well, also because my rap is usually gay. I mean, I'm like Greta Garbo, Anne Monroe, Dietrich and DiMaggio, Marlon Brando, Jimmy Dean, on the cover of a magazine. You know what I mean? I have no flow.
Fitzy and Wippa.